this is Jamie Magridge. Welcome to Jamie's Craft Table. Today I'm going to show you how I made this card. I made a matching envelope this time. So let's get started. I used Friendly Hello. This is free in the celebration through the end of February. And I use this stamp. I use this stamp here. I masked that hello friend off. I just used the hello. I use this leaf here. Alright. So I have a scrap of Whisper White, or Basic White, to stamp on. I have a 4 by 5 1/4 inch piece of white, 4 1/8 by 5 3/8 inch piece of black. I have my card base, which is 5 1/2 by 8 1/2, scored and folded at 4 1/4, and I have my envelope. Okay, first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and adhere this to the front of my card, just to so that I don't have as much on my desk. Come on. Well, come out today. Got a pin here. Just gonna stick it in there. It pulls out whatever's clogged up in there. Doesn't happen very often, but seems to happen to me more often because I forget to put the lid on. Okay, there's going to be a 1/16 of an inch around, all the way around, because it's an 1/8 of an inch smaller than the 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch front of the card. Okay, so we'll put that aside. We're going to also be using Granny Apple Green Memento Black ink, and I have a, oh, I don't need the marker. I have a combo pumpkin pie of Stampin' Blends, a pair of snips, a Memento Black, and white embossing powder. And those are the supplies you're going to need today, and a few rhinestones and a few dimensionals. Okay, first thing I'm going to do, because these stamps have been sitting out for, I'm going to wash them real fast because I see lint on them. And I had them in a drawer, but a lot of times that drawer was open, so I just want to make sure they're clean. Cat hair and okay, let's. Alright, so here we go. First thing I'm going to do is on this scratch paper here with Memento ink, I'm going to stamp the flowers. Make sure it's good and inked. I'm going to stamp them. Okay, then I'm going to bring in the outlines of the leaf. Ooh, got ink on my finger. Not a good way to start. I need 3 leaves, so I'm going to stamp 3 leaves on here. These will need fussy cut out, but that's the start. Okay, and I'm going to take the inside of the leaf. It might actually be a separate leaf, but I'm using it this way, and I'm going to ink it up with Granny Apple Green. And it's not going to match exactly, but I'm going to go ahead and stamp it to fill that in. Okay. And I'm going to show you how I colored these. I started with the light pumpkin pie. I just flicked out from the center. I left some white space. If you're more comfortable coloring the whole thing in, you can do that as well. You can leave it at this if you'd like. But then I came in with the dark, and I just added a little bit of dark in some of these areas at the bottom. And where these petals overlapped, I just added a little bit of dark in there. And that's all the coloring I did. Okay, now these will need to be fussy cut out, so I'll do that. And let's proceed to this piece. We're going to take that same stamp. I'm done with the green ink, so let's get that out of my way. The memento. Make sure my hands are clean. And I'm going to stamp across the bottom of this card. I'm going to stamp one like here. Stamp one, turning my stamp. Stamp one like here. Ooh, I should have put a scrap paper down. If I can find one fast. I'm going to stamp one over here. And then I'm going to stamp one more here. See? I'm going to color this the same way I did these. Put it aside for a minute. I'm going to bring in that envelope. Open it up. And I'm actually going to tuck this in the scrap paper like that. Bring in another sheet to go underneath. And I'm going to stamp on this flap. There's no right or wrong, really. And then one more here. Might as well do a little bit hanging off there. Okay. Alright. Turn this over. Now we're going to color all these flowers the same way I did this one. And I just opened the envelope up so it didn't bleed through. And I just real quick added some color. The envelope, I didn't add the extra. I just did the light pumpkin pie. If you look at it, it just looks like strokes. It doesn't, not filling in the whole thing. But it it looks good. I mean, it represents that there's color there. Okay. Okay, so that's all I did for the envelope. I'll go ahead and color these the same way as I did the other one. Really quite fast. I didn't do any fancy coloring. You could take your time and do a real fancy with all the different colors and layers. That would be gorgeous. For this card, I wanted it to be fairly simple. Something anybody could do. So I'm just brushing, stroking color on. Leaving the centers blank. Not putting any color in the center at all. I came in with the dark. Again, I flicked in some color. Oh, wrong end. I like the other end. You can use the smaller end if you have more control. That's fine. And don't be afraid to move your paper so you can get your flicks, because I can't always flick easily or neatly towards myself. I get a better result when I flick away from myself. Almost done here. Just a few more. And basically I'm putting the tip down a little bit heavy and picking it up as I go away from myself. That makes it feather out the end. So it's fatter at the one end and skinnier at the other. That makes sense. Okay, so there's that. So now we need to cut these out. So let's bring in our snips. They're fairly easy to cut out. I'm just going to give myself like a 1/16 of an inch white border around. I find if I move the paper more than I move the scissors, I get a more smooth cut. And if I don't open it and close the scissors quite as much, I get a smoother cut. I'll show you what I mean here in a second. Let me at least get around to this other side here. Okay, if you're going, every time you open and close the scissors, you're likely to get a little bit of a edge there. I don't know if you can even see it. These scissors are pretty good. See, it changes direction, whereas if you do a nice, smooth, even cut, it's a straighter line. That's what I'm talking about. Where'd the other one go? Okay, let me finish cutting these out. A lot of traffic outside today. wet road, so it sounds really loud. That's what. Unfortunately, I live in a city, so there's nothing I can do about it. I don't have any place to go to get away from it. Okay, then I gotta cut these out real fast. Almost done here. One more. I should have just done this off camera, but I wanted you to see it's not difficult. I'm not doing, you know, really fancy fussy cutting. I'm just roughly cutting these out. Okay, now I'm going to bring in that black piece, that little black strip. What did I do with it? I had one here, I know I did. Well, I know I had one. Here it is. Maybe I didn't have it out. It's 3/4 of an inch by 4 inches. And I'm going to bring in Versamark ink. I forgot to mention that at the beginning. It's a sticky ink. I'm going to bring in my stamp. And I want to mask off the hello because I just want to mask off the friend because I just want the hello. So I'm going to take a Post-it note. I'm going to put a Post-it note on here. I need a little bit more to cover up this piece, so I'll go ahead and use this. I'm going to use my Versamark ink. I'm going to ink that up. There's a hair on there. Get that hair off. Try that again. And I'm going to take this Post-it notes back off. Discard those. And I'm going to stamp this hello over towards this left end. I'm going to leave about, I don't know, 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch. I'll go ahead and stamp that right on the center of that. And you can just barely see. Okay, then I'm going to come in with my embossing powder. This is white embossing powder, and I should have used a Stampin' Buddy because see how it's stuck to my fingerprints? Just wipe that off. I'm going to put a little more on there. Again, wipe it off where you don't want it. And you can bring in a paintbrush if you need to. Brush away all the little flakes. Like I said, I should have used a static embossing buddy with the powder in it. Okay, put this aside. And I'm going to bring in my heat tool. I'm going to bring in a cutting board. Turn this heat tool on. I want you to be able to see. There it goes. See how it's melting that powder into a nice white. Now see it going? There it goes. All right. Now we're ready to assemble our card. We've got all of our elements. Okay. So I'm going to bring in this piece. And we're going to mount this across here. We're going to cover up some of those flowers. That's fine. Close up my ink. I'm just using the Tombow Mono wet glue. Okay, now I'm going to bring in some dimensionals for the back of this. Turn these over. Put a dimensional on the back of each one of those. The little ones would probably work better for these, but these big ones fit, so okay. And we're going to take the backs off. And we're going to place this here. We want to make sure the hello shows, so okay, then our leaves. Tuck one in here. Tuck one in down here. And let's tuck another one up in here. Where do we want it? Right there works. Okay. Now we're going to mount this to the front of our card. It's way over there. I'm going to use the wet glue. You can use the Stampin' Seal if you prefer. Okay, now we're going to finish it off by bringing in our basic rhinestones. And I'm going to put, oops. I'm going to bring in a basic rhinestone, and I'm going to put one in each one of these flowers here. And since it looks better with a 3, I'm going to grab one more and put it like right here. So I've got that 3. There we go. There's the card we just made together. Here's the one I did previously. I'd stamped something in the inside, but you don't need to. There we go. Well, thank you so much for joining me today at Jamie's Craft Table. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I hope you can find a little bit of time to play with some stamps, ink, and paper. It looks like I used a little bit less of the dark pumpkin pie on my original. I must have only used it on these flowers, but I like them both ways. Thank you. Have a great rest of your day, everybody.